Call the October 17th, 2016 meeting to order. Mr. Kendrick, if you would give us invocation, and Commissioner Jeffers, if you would lead us in the pledge, please.
Let us pray. Lord, we come to you this day giving thanks for all the blessings that you've given us. We'd ask that you watch over this board and its employees as we do the county's business. We'd ask that you help us to make the decisions that are right for all the Personians here. We'd ask that you guide us, direct us. We'd ask that you be with all those that are sick. We'd ask that you be with our leaders, help them to make the decisions that are right for our country. Be with our troops and watch over and guide them. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Everybody have a chance to look at the agenda? Do we need any adjustments, additions, or deletions? If not, do I hear a motion we accept it as presented?
So moved.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have an agenda. All right, Ms. York.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. It is my pleasure today to be able to recognize the Person Area Transportation System. PATS was presented with an award, and we all know here what a great job they do, but it's always nice when someone from the outside recognizes their efforts as well. And so they were presented back in September an award for first place in performance excellence in their peer group, which is peer group 3. And this award was presented by the state DOT, our Department of Transportation, for the community transportation category. And it's recognizing, and it's a culmination of many of their accomplishments in terms of their reviews, their system reviews, their reporting, their financial documents being sound, and above all, a steadfast record for safety. So I wanted to take the opportunity to thank the drivers and the staff and Kathy for their efforts at PATS, and to present the award publicly that they received back from DOT in September. So Kathy, if you would join us up here and also introduce us to the staff that were able to join you today.
Again, this was a group effort, team. Without my team, I could not have accomplished this. I have a great bunch of people. I have, let's see, 3 of my drivers that's away right now. Edwin and Angela and Karen. They're 3 of our drivers. Most of the others are out on the road doing what we do best, rolling with dialysis patients this morning. But it was a big accomplishment, and we were excited. We're excited. That's all I can say.
We are
We're
proud of you.
excited.
Thank
We are.
you. Let me give that to you to display.
Thank you, Kathy. We have a public hearing this morning for some county incentives. Do I hear a motion we open the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, public hearing is now open. Stuart, if you would.
Yes, sir.
Start us off.
As identified in the public hearing notice, this is a request for a public hearing to consider the appropriation of county general funds for the purpose of providing an appropriation to PCBIC, Person County Business and Industrial Center, Inc., in compliance with applicable law to assist Project G2 to locate manufacturing in Person County. This particular project will have 57 new jobs, $31.8 million of new investment, and an average wage of $43,000. The grant would include, as you have previously approved in the past, the company would, if they decided to come here, would pay their normal property taxes, and they'd get a percentage back of it each year for a period of 7 years. The recommended amount that's on this list, it starts at 80% tax, and it goes from 80 to 75 to 70 down to 45% over 7 years. What that comes out to is $518,254.45 based on that capital investment, as you have done similar projects in the past.
That's based on the current rate.
Yes, sir. Now, I'll also add, sir, that the way you have done it in the past, we'd recommend be done in the future too. And to further that, if the company exceeds that amount, that they would get the same percentage. So just like with Spuntex, they said they were gonna do $35 million, they ended up doing $77 million. So it'd be the same percentage of grant for the same period of time.
Based on the actual amount invested.
On the actual amount of net new capital investment. In this particular case, it's personal property, and we're just talking net new capital investment. In other words, you know, that's all we're talking about is net new capital investment.
Basically, it's new equipment.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody here to speak to this public hearing? Nobody signed
No
up?
one signed up, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay,
Can I say something?
yes.
Person County Business Industrial Center, Inc. heard this at their last meeting last Wednesday, and they recommended this process to you with the amounts listed as stated in the public hearing. Unanimously.
All right, any further discussion in the public hearing?
How strong do you think the 57, was it 57 jobs?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
How strong are we on the net new jobs? Is that, because I know we've run into instances in times that we didn't quite always get there, but in just your personal opinion.
My
so-
personal opinion, I think it's low. I think they'll do more
Okay.
than that.
That's good.
And the other thing is we always do is we write an agreement, so that if they don't make what they're supposed to make, there would be, they wouldn't get the
Repercussions.
amount that they're supposed to get.
All right,
But you would never be paying anything ahead of time.
that's right. Thank you, Stuart.
Yes, sir.
All right. Have a motion to come out of public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're back in regular session. What's the desire of the board?
Move for approval.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We have a need for another
What's-
public hearing. Community Transportation Program application, Kathy Acott. Do I have a motion to go in public hearing, open the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are in open. Public hearing is now open.
I'm here today to request the approval of the 2018 Community Transportation Program Grant. This funding helps the transportation system with administration and capital budgets. The administration funding is 85% state and federal, 15% county match. Capital is 90% state and federal, and 10% county match. Administrative county match would be $23,398. Our capital match would be $12,300, making a total commitment for the county next year would be $35,698. The total project funding is $278,988 for the 2018 fiscal budget. The admin helps with the salaries, benefits, office supplies, marketing, and lease of our building. And the capital, of course, is our vehicles. We have to get a commitment, as usual, every year from the county that they will put in their percentage in order for us to go forth with this grant for the next year's budget.
Any questions, Ms. Acott? Adcock, excuse me. Anybody sign up to speak?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, Kathy.
Move close public hearing.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, what's the desire of the board?
Move for approval.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anybody sign up for informal? Okay, we're moving right along. All right, everybody have a chance to look at the consent agenda? Anybody want to talk about any one of those items? If not, I have a motion for approval.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 7, Mr. Clayton.
Well, after we had our group up here at the last meeting concerned about the ash basins, and I realized that the state's handling the 90% of that. But the state has also passed down I've considered a pretty high fee for water samples, and a lot of people won't do it because of the cost. And I felt like we ought to see if the state would waive some of that fee. So I wanted to recommend that we have an additional area in addition to, I think the half-a-mile area may be taken care of pretty well, but the other mile out from that around those ash ponds, I think some of those people want to know what's in their water. It's up to them to decide whether they want to get it checked or not. I just want a mechanism for it not to cost them as much as it would if they didn't have a problem. They didn't create that out there, and I don't know that they've got one, and they may not know either, but I think they should be afforded the opportunity to find out at a reasonable cost. And also, we've discussed this landfill over and over and over, and I think it's the same thing in the radius of that. If it's the potential for some groundwater pollution and somebody wants to have their water checked, I think they ought to not have to pay it. I call it high fee for that. And that was passed down to the county by the state when they started charging the way they do the lab fees. So I proposed a resolution asking the governor of having the Division of Water Quality would waive that fee for Person County within that area. And it's spelled out in this letter. I'm sure you've all had a chance to read that. And I can read it if you want me to, but if you see something that needs to be changed in it, say so. But that's just what I felt like with the people coming up here. They were asking for some help, and I thought maybe we could give them a little bit.
All right, is there any discussion on this matter?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the question to Commissioner Clayton. What was the basis for moving from the appointed half-mile radius to a 1.5-mile radius? Because I've seen the data, and I've sent the data to all of the commissioners that none of the federal drinking water guidelines were impacted or exceeded, and to just arbitrarily move the line from a half-mile, which was set up by the state and the legislature, to a 1.5 miles without any basis seems like a moot point. And I understand that if you say, well, 1.5 miles is where we want to go, what about the people that are at 2 miles? What about the folks that are at 3 miles? Where do you stop? If you had reason or basis for your number of 1.5 miles, then I could understand why you would ask for it. But none of the federal drinking water guidelines have been exceeded within the half-mile radius, so it seems like you're making a point out of nothing.
Well, first off, you can drill a well. I'll have to rely on about 40-some years of experience with different environmental things, and it includes well water testing and for all types of things. I've looked at it for petroleum products, and that's probably a really good gauge. But in this part of North Carolina, your rock layers don't lay flat down like they do at the coast. They sort of stand up. The layer of rock doesn't lay over like that at the coast. Up here is sort of standing up, and it runs from basically northeast to southwest. And there's cracks in that rock, and that's where your groundwater's coming from. So somebody probably on either side of those ponds are probably less likely to have a contamination than the ones that are in line with that, but you don't know where it goes when it gets in that groundwater. I have seen people with wells with petroleum products in it be probably 100 feet from the source of the pollution and not have a problem with their well, and somebody else several hundred feet away from it, but to be in line with where that groundwater's moving underground, and it traveled right on with it. So you don't know where it's going, how long it takes it to get there. And you have to pick a figure somewhere. I was trying to be reasonable when I picked a mile because it seemed like most of the people up here lived within a mile of it, so I thought it would be reasonable to give them an opportunity to see what's in it. I think if they did that and they started finding stuff in it and you wanted to extend it, it would be fine. But no, it was not a scientific reason for picking a mile. It was just the fact that I know that dealing with groundwater, you never know what's really in it. And also, I understand what they're saying about the coal ash itself, but it's not the coal ash. It's the concentration from the leachate from the coal ash that concentrates things like selenium. And back in the 80s, when the lake got too much selenium in it, it wasn't that the coal ash washed over in the lake. It was the fact that the effluent from the coal ash leaked into the lake, and they had to put the warnings up for the fish until they got the levels down. Now, they fixed it and got the levels back down. But and you know, it's just an opportunity for the people within that distance. No, there wasn't a scientific way to pick that. But groundwater in this part of North Carolina, in the rocks and crevices and cracks that we're getting it from, is, you know, some of it can have iron in it, and some of it can have other things that are naturally occurring in it. But if you start picking up high levels of stuff that are coming out of that they know what they're looking for in that, then I think they ought to have the opportunity to do that at a reduced cost, because they probably wouldn't be asking for the sample if they weren't concerned. So that was my take on it.
Yeah, and the other thing is to change the fee schedule for a specific group of people within the county is, I'm going to use just a simple word, fair, because we could have issues within other parts of the county, and why wouldn't we reduce the rates for those people? So when you set the rates up by fee schedule, you're treating everybody the same. So if I wanted to have my water tested at my house, it costs me the same thing that it does someone that's within the half-mile radius. So you're picking and choosing your base on who you're going to reduce your numbers for. I also talked about the last meeting, the cancer letter that Dr. Long sent to us, and I went back and read it again over the weekend, and there were several different things, and I'm not going to use the monitor. There's no need in using that. So, but I just wanted to touch base with you on one of the things that I saw throughout this letter, and I'm going to just read some excerpts from it. May 28, 2015. Further, we examined the age-adjusted cancer incident rates in Person County for 2008 and 2012 diagnosis years, and found that the rates for colorectal, lung bronchitis, female breast, and prostate cancers were similar to the state rates. In addition, we looked at cancers that have been shown to be associated with environmental risk factors: liver, pancreas, leukemia, brain, bladder, kidney, multiple myeloma, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and identified that a total of 870 cases for Person County between 1990 and 2014. These cases were spread out over 25 years and not concentrated in any time period. Overall, no consistent pattern of cases was observed other than the previously stated. It is possible that there is an environmental risk for cancer in the area. However, we do not see a higher occurrence rate of cancers in the populations usually associated with environmental factors at the time of this evidence of any clustering cancer sources in any of these areas. So we got head people at the state of North Carolina telling us that we don't have higher concentrations within our county. We've got the well water samples within the half-mile radius that say we don't have any incidents of federal drinking water guidelines being exceeded, yet we're going to make a plea to the governor of the state to change the rules that the legislature has put in place, and I just can't put my name, or I will not approve my name being put on a letter, because you're picking a specific incident that has no case rate and trying to make a case out of it, and I won't be a party of making a case rate out of something that's not there.
Well, I look at it like this. I'm probably the closest to these coal ash ponds, at least one to HICO as any other commissioner. I'm probably the furthest commissioner away from the landfill. We're not elected by districts, we're elected by at large. And I don't see an issue of sending a letter of consideration to the governor to look at something as we're representing all the citizens here in Person County. I don't pick and choose which citizens I try to represent on day-to-day basis. I don't listen to the ones that are the most liberal. I don't listen to the ones that are most conservative. I try to do what I think is best for Person County, and I think when you hear from some of the pleas that we've heard from both landfill and people living around that coal ash pond, I see no problem with sending a letter of support from this board, from this county, who has 3 coal burning facilities, who have 2 coal ash ponds, who has a mono field, who has a mega landfill. Why wouldn't we do that? I mean, I'm 33. I hope to live to 93, and I don't want to be.
Oh, more than that.
I don't want to say, well, in 2016 we had a chance to maybe see if we had a problem here in the county, and not wait 20 years, 30 years later for our children, grandchildren, and so on to find out that we have a problem in Person County. I see this as doing our due diligence as an elected official for our community.
HYCO plant was started in about 1964, 1965. The case study that I just read from was a 25-year study. I think we've set the precedence for a 25-year study for a plant that's been here and operating since about 1968. I think we've set the precedence. And to go, and I'm going to use the word, and it may not be appropriate, to go on what I consider a witch hunt for something that's not there is not appropriate.
Mr. Chairman, you might not know it's there, and it might not be there. I'm not saying that it is. I just think that you've got a known source of possible pollution. It would be just like in some areas the state requires a monitoring well within so many feet of an underground storage tank, which I think they've outlawed at this point in time, but they may require a monitoring well. There's no monitoring wells required in that mile area that I'm talking about. I just think it's an opportunity for the people, and it's not singling out. I understand what he's saying about the rest of the citizens, but if any citizen that lives within that area close to that, I think they ought to have an opportunity to have it at a reduced rate, particularly if they've got low income. Now, if they start finding something bad out there, I can tell you that I think that the state will send a team in here and do sampling, and the county won't be paying for any of it if they actually find something. But until somebody finds something, they're not going to send them in here. Well, when they send them in here, they're going to sample, do environmental samples and all kinds of stuff that we will not be having to pay for. But at this point in time, I just thought it affords, if nothing else, some peace of mind for the people that are living that close if they're really worried about it. And I just thought it was a simple thing to do and the right thing to do. And I don't know where water goes underground. I don't have any idea. I've been dealing with it for all these years, and a guy can drill a well right next to his neighbor and it'd be fine, and another one a half a mile away can drill one, and your well may get muddy when he drills it. So you don't know which way that water's actually going, or we may know generally. So that was just my take on it. I think it's the right thing to do for the people that are living in those areas.
I'm a part of the Board of Health as my duties as a commissioner, and one of the things that we've discussed in our meetings is the financial assistance that a company is given to the citizens of Person County of low income. Aren't I correct that if you show a need, that there's money in a fund to test for the additional agents that aren't under the standard fee schedule?
You are correct. I
We
believe
come up to this.
I believe the name of the group is Clean Water NC, and they've actually assisted, I believe it's 3 or 4 individuals in that area to have their water tested with the coal ash panel and the hexavalent chromium panel.
So there is an avenue in place already.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, now we're supposed to discuss, you said something about next month?
Right. We wanted the opportunity for the Board of Health to review the fee structure that was in place for the well testing. And so they meet later this month. And according to Ron, the way that the law is laid out for this is that a recommendation has to first come through the Board of Health for an adjustment to the fees, you have to do it for the entire county. You cannot pinpoint certain areas. And so after the Board of Health is able to study and benchmark our fees, we will bring back a recommendation at your November meeting. That would be the first opportunity to do so. Please chime in if I'm
Yes,
misrepresenting.
our board meets on next Monday evening, the 24th. And we have been, myself and staff have reached out to other counties to secure fee schedules, to make a comparison of those, as well as looking at the exact administrative cost, so we can present that to our board next week so they can make an informed decision.
All right. With that said,
Mr. Chairman,
yeah,
I hear what they're saying, but I still say that if the state waives the fee for the items coming down here, then the Board of Health can take action on it. But I don't see a problem with still requesting that we try to do something for these people and request the state to give us some relief on it.
well, I don't disagree with that wholly. My only concern is, wouldn't we be best served to have a unified request which includes the Board of Health?
Mr.
And do
Chairman.
that all at one time, instead of us acting independently. If that's the case, we're disregarding our own Board of Health.
Do you
Mr.
want
Chairman.
to postpone it till the next meeting?
I'm not against it, I'm just saying we need to do it as a unified group. That's
Mr. Ch-
not per year.
I make a motion to table this issue and defer it to the the County Board of Health, and after they've met, to give a recommendation back to us after their meeting at our next scheduled commission meeting.
All right.
Point of
Any-
order,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman.
Once a motion has been made
He
to
doesn't-
table, there's
I
no,
mean, if he say he doesn't need to table it, if he's gonna request it, it be carried to the Board of Health first.
but he's putting the amendment in there that it come back. It's not tabled for an indefinite period.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll talk about it next month. Thank you for bringing that to us, Mr. Clayton. Mr. Jones, if you would enlighten us as to,
I'll do my best. Just for starters, the Board of County Commissioners set up a special board of collision review early 2013. And in that resolution, the board also had a discussion that said if a tax appeal came up outside of the normal board of collision review, that it should be brought to the county commissioners. A business personal property appeal would fit that avenue. What happens with business personal property is evaluation is not finished until after the board of collision is done. So in this case, Spuntech is filing an appeal. Their appeal was timely filed with the county. We actually went over the case with them. The case is based on the discussion of depreciation and a certificate of occupancy for the building in which the equipment was maintained. Mr. Daniel Sharon is with us this morning. He's the CFO of Spuntech. He wishes to offer some photos of the equipment, an IRS tax case, which IRS is a little bit different than county, but not so different in this situation. So if the board desires, I'd like Mr. Sharon to address the board, share the photos that he didn't want to be public record because they're confidential. And then after that, I'd like to tell the board the point of view from the tax office standpoint and why we think we badged property correctly.
all right, who wants to come forward?
Mr. Sharon.
Sorry, my printer didn't work this morning, so just read it from here.
If you would state your name and.
Daniel Burt Sharon. I live in Durham, but work
and
here.
you with Spuntech?
Yep.
Okay.
So basically, I just want to limit the case. What we have differences on is on the when the equipment was put in service, and we basically say, or basically the equipment was put in service in 2015, but Mr. Jones says otherwise. That's it. I mean, IRS publication 946 states that depreciation begins when property is put in service, placed in service. Placed in service is defined, you place property in service when it is ready and available for a specific use, whether a business activity, an income-producing activity, a tax-exempt activity, or a personal activity. Even if you are not using the property, it is in service when it is ready and available for a specific use. That's it. I mean, we were planning to put the production line into service in the third quarter. Unfortunately, we didn't make it, and it was placed in service on the 10th of December of 2015. I mean, that's basically it. I mean, I have pictures here from the christening of the line, and you can just see kind of the time mark on if you want to see like the time stamp on the file when it was created, and you can see it's 10th of December, and I could bring witnesses or whatever.
Are you claiming IRS depreciation, or are you claiming, I think according to the tax law, you have to use normal wear and tear, and that's the way they calculate their depreciation.
No,
Am I right, Russell?
Yes, sir.
no,
Okay.
you're actually wrong. That's not the law. That's not how it works with depreciation. Not federal, not state, not county, not in America. That's it. I mean, there's not. I mean, there's the law. That's it. There's the law. There's the case law. I mean, depreciation starts when equipment is placed in service. Placed in service is something that the person that's built or acquired it determines, unless you have some overwhelming proof to say otherwise. Then basically that's it. There's no wear or tear or nothing. I mean, actually the opposite. I mean, the law states that even if it wasn't used, but it could be used, depreciation already starts. So, I mean, it really is straightforward. I mean, that's it.
I have a problem with what you're saying and what is in the documents that we got. You're talking about third quarter of 2015, but on page 68 of the documents that were sent to us, it says line 5 was not in a ready state on the valuation date of January 1st, but was certified to be occupied on March 7th, 2016. So you're talking third quarter 2015 and dates when the paperwork here is showing first quarter 2016.
Yeah, I mean, the paperwork means nothing for this.
It means something to your argument, though. You're talking
No,
2015 quarter, third quarter versus first quarter 2016.
It really doesn't. A certificate of occupancy or some specific forms being completed, they have no relevance.
I'm not talking about the valuation of the property. I'm talking about your argument on when it was put in service. And so forget about depreciation and everything that we've talked about previous. You're sitting here saying in front of us that third quarter of 2015 you have issues. But the paperwork that you sent us that's highlighted says January 1st and March 7th, 2016. So let's start out with what dates we're talking about and when we're going to start depreciation, if there is any depreciation.
I'm not sure what exactly you're referring
For
to.
clarification, the paperwork you're referring to is actually paperwork I submitted.
Okay.
Only the cover sheet that says attachment 1 spun text evidence is what he submitted.
Yeah, I mean-
So you're referring to my paperwork, not what Mr. Sharon's presented.
So which
Okay,
one?
so which one's the date?
Which one's his?
Attachment 1 spun text taxpayer evidence. There's one page there. He basically read over the depreciation.
I can find it in your packet.
It's found on page
Yeah,
71
it's
of your
just like
packet.
a couple of paragraphs
Yeah.
on one page.
We've got that. It'd be
So
page-
Russell, when is the date in question? Is it third quarter of 2015 or is it first quarter of 2016? That's my question.
Would you like me to approach the podium?
Please.
The issue, of course, depreciation that Mr. Sharon did represent correctly. The building inspection department was on hold, waiting for the phone call to say the building is finished. The equipment was in a building that was not complete. The equipment can't be started until the building is finished. The equipment requires operators to be in the building for the equipment to run. The ready state is the state at which the equipment can produce the final product that Spuntech wishes to sell.
Right.
So on January the 5th, and not before, our inspections department determined that there was enough completion to allow a temporary CO and to start the line. Not to put in production, but to start it for testing.
That state of readiness.
Yes. That wasn't still at state of readiness then, they were allowed to test it. It was not in a state of ready until January the 7th, when they had a final CO. So the whole thing about depreciation is wear and tear. Equipment that cannot be used to produce because you can't be in the building to operate it cannot suffer wear and tear. That's the reason we say that the equipment should be valued at 100% of what it costs to install it, as indicated by North Carolina General Statute. The equipment could not be used, you couldn't be in the building.
All right, now,
Can I respond?
just a minute. Assuming that the equipment was already up and running, and you were just doing a regular annual audit, what depreciation would you have allowed?
If the equipment was installed and running as of January 1st,
Yeah, forget about that discrepancy. All I'm asking for is if a piece of equipment was put into service, say November, okay? Your period runs from January to December, is that right?
yes, sir.
Okay. How do you calculate depreciation?
Actually, we get guidance from the Department of Revenue on that because the equipment is, in so many different businesses, so unique.
So you don't just use the depreciation on an IRS form?
Absolutely not. IRS offers different depreciation for different reasons. Sometimes
Okay,
it's
that's
for the
covered under
economy.
General statute.
It's covered in general statute. Actually, what we have is what they call a trending schedule, provided to us by the Department of Revenue, that shows each type of equipment and that type of industry and what the depreciation should be. Some equipment, like computers, depreciates very fast. Some other equipment, like Mr. Strawn's equipment, does not. The depreciation for this equipment would have been 10% if it had been in production before January 1st.
Okay, well, in his defense, that equipment's probably gonna be obsolete in 3 years, so he's.
And that technology, I don't think so.
Well,
That's not a,
I'm just saying that, his schedule and your schedule vary considerably.
well,
And so in most industries.
And once there's obsolescence, because the equipment has advanced, there is an avenue for obsolescence. The equipment is not obsolete at this point. There's been no evidence presented that said that his equipment is not first class, state of the art, and it is. So there's no obsolescence here at all.
Oh, no, not yet.
Okay, so we shouldn't, that's not our consideration today, because there's no obsolescence.
I'm not talking about that.
I can go over the.
I'm just trying to educate myself on
Oh,
the
yes, sir.
difference between IRS depreciation allowance and how yours is calculated by general statute.
Well, the IRS will let you write off sometimes 50, 75% the first year. You're familiar with
Sometimes
section.
they let you write off 100.
You're familiar with Section 179 depreciation, where you can write off, and they do that to stimulate the economy. They do that for certain trade zones. They do it for different reasons. The whole idea behind property tax is equity. Everybody should be treated the same. Any equipment that is installed and hasn't suffered depreciation because there's no wear and tear is appraised 100% of cost. We've done that for every industry. That's what North Carolina General Statutes say that we should do.
All right, assuming that the certificate of occupancy was in place and everything was kosher, say November the 1st, All right. How much depreciation would have been allowed had it, had this?
January 1st.
10%.
Okay.
If it had been occupied and operating December 31st. A good example of that is your house that burns down on January the 2nd. That taxpayer has to pay taxes on that house for the entire year. That house that burned down December 31st, there had been no taxes on that house for that entire year. The General Assembly, in their infinite knowledge, said there had to be a certain date to value all property. And to be fair to everybody, that date is a solid date. It doesn't fluctuate by a day here or a day there. January 1st is the day. So without a CO on January 1st, the equipment is still construction in progress. It is not suffering wear and tear.
I want to go to the email stream that starts because this may help me
Sure.
make a decision on which way I go. Page 72, 73, 74.
I don't have my number in that page. Just tell me which one you want to
It's
start
the
with.
email stream between Dale.
respond?
Dale, if you'll give me a chance to talk, I'll let you respond in a moment.
Okay.
We as a county, it looks like through the email stream, and you guys can help me, had an inspector that went out prior to Christmas to inspect, and we had some issues. And then that inspector, I'm assuming, went on vacation and didn't return until January the 5th. Number one, I know people within the county take vacations, but when we have as little business and industry that wants to come to Person County at this time, I personally find it unacceptable that we put such a large corporation on hold for a employee to go on vacation and not get back with them until after the first of the year. So number one, had we had someone that could go out and do the inspection, because Friday, December the 18th was the notification saying that we would be back on January the 5th. So we've got basically half a month that Spuntech could have possibly made corrections and had it started by January the 1st, and we wouldn't be having this discussion. And then you go down to Friday, December the 18th, where Russell Jones made the comment that if we obtain the CO early in January, then the tax office would consider the building complete as of January 1st. So had we had all of this stuff in place, this January 1st deadline and the discussion on depreciation, we wouldn't be having it. So I look at it, and I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody because I do things wrong all the time and I want to make public knowledge of it, and I'm not picking on anybody. But had we gone ahead and did the CO and finished it prior to December the 31st, we wouldn't be having this conversation, correct?
If I could, yes, we would not be having this conversation.
Okay.
Can I point you to the third page of emails? The email was done at 3:51 p.m. And after reading this email, I think you'd be very proud of our inspection department. They made this project a priority. In that email, at the very bottom of it, it says, "Our staffing issues have not hindered this inspection on this job. We're standing by waiting for that phone call. We will come by and inspect right now if you tell us you're ready."
Thank you.
We did what we were supposed to do. Our inspection department did an awesome job on this.
Yeah.
They were not the holdup.
Okay, I appreciate you pointing that
Just
out. I
because
didn't-
an inspector's on vacation, any of the inspectors can do
Okay.
the job.
All right, that's what I said. I won't point fingers. I didn't read that section. Thank you for pointing
I
it out.
I was so happy we had documented everything so thoroughly through this project. Our inspectors were waiting. They wanted this project to go online.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you pointing that out.
All right.
And like I said, I make mistakes.
No, absolutely.
There's another public one that shows.
I just want to say this argument is not about the different depreciation rates between the IRS, the state, and the county. Of course, it's different, but that's not really the discussion. The discussion really is when depreciation begins, and there is no difference because there is no specific guidelines. Not in the county, not in the state, and then we go to federal law and case law. The specific date of one inspection or the other is not relevant for when property is placed in service. It is somewhat relevant when you're speaking about a building. Then there are court cases that take it into consideration. But when we're talking about machinery, there is no case law, because the law itself is very kind of limited. So we rely on case law for that. There really is no precedent for a specific piece of paper from a local inspector determining if something's placed in service or not, because they really can't determine it. They don't have the tools. The tools of when an $80 million production line that hundreds of engineers and people have worked on, when it's placed in service, is the company's discretion. That's it. I mean, they're really. I mean, you can't. I mean, of course you can, but there isn't another side of this discussion. I mean, that's just the law of this country. That's how it works. I mean, that's when equipment is placed in service. A specific piece of paper really is irrelevant. I mean, there really is no cases where it is relevant or where that's taken into account. So, I mean, that's our case here. I mean.
So let me ask you a question. It's a hypothetical.
Yeah.
My wife owns a business, and she buys a computer on January the 31st to use at her business. But she only reports to Russell that she started using it on March 31st. When does tax start on that computer?
Tax started whenever she says it does. If
we use that logic, though, we would be taking everyone's word for it.
Yeah, you do.
But
when you submit your tax return, you submit your tax return. I mean, the government takes your word for it. They can come afterwards and audit you, but yeah, I mean, that's how the tax system works. I mean, yeah,
Y'all
I
operate on
disagree.
a calendar year or fiscal year?
but it's same. Fiscal year, calendar year is the same. But no, I mean, it's your taxes, or you self-report your taxes. Any jurisdiction can come and audit you, and we've been through audits. A state audit, we had a property tax audit. Actually, last year we came out, completely, without any errors. I mean, yeah, I mean, tax is self-reporting. When you submit your tax return on a personal level, you don't get it pre-approved. You just send it in, and corporations do the same. I mean, you take our word for it. If you want, you can come and audit us and fine us. If you find that we're wrong, you can throw somebody in jail. I mean, that's how it works. I mean. And I'm going to say a certificate of occupancy is just not relevant for when property is placed in service. That's.
All right, you say there's no case law concerning this?
There is case law, but the case law in regards to certificate of occupancy shows that a certificate of occupancy can be one thing that's taken into account when determining if something's placed in service. But the cases where it is taken into account, it only refers to building and not to machinery. Machinery is a different story, where certificate of occupancy has completely nothing to do with it. I mean, what has something to do with it is the fact that the line was in commercial production in December. We were making fabric that we sold afterwards. There were people working in the plant. There were hundreds of people working in the plant for months before then. I mean, we had christening. We probably had people from the county there. I mean, it was working. People were working shifts. I mean, that's it. I mean, it was working. That's it.
Russ?
there actually is some case law that supports the county on this, and this case law was given to us by Mr. Sharon. It's part of the Stein case, and the Stein case is included in your document. The Stein case isn't necessarily the best argument in that story, though. There's 4 other cases referenced in the Stein case. One of them is one I think is very applicable because it is equipment. It's about a $22 million airplane that the taxpayer purchased, and he did list it for on his taxes, self-reported, and the IRS decided to audit him. The difference here is we know that the information about the case ahead of time. So rather than letting the taxpayer misreport, we're trying to get it straight up front. The taxpayer on this one had a $22 million airplane. He got the airplane on December 30th. He flew it 4,000 miles. He flew it around to 2 or 3 different of his clients. He sold high-end life insurance. So a $22 million airplane flew 4,000 miles December 30th, and the IRS called it tax flights, flights to discourage the taxpayer from reporting correctly. The problem with the airplane was not that it couldn't fly. It's a $22 million Challenger Learjet. The problem was it wasn't in a ready state for the taxpayer. The ready state on this one depended on the fact that the taxpayer needed conference tables in there. Conference tables in the airplane and some bigger monitors. He has 17-inch monitors, he wants 20-inch monitors. That alone was enough for the IRS to say, you cannot depreciate this year because it was not in a ready state. Now let's go back to the certificate of occupancy. We have a production line that requires employees to be in a building to operate that line. And employees cannot be in a building that the mine building inspector said is unsafe to occupy. I would hate to think we had a company that said we didn't care about employee safety. So if they could not be in there and to produce, to operate the equipment, how could they produce commercially? They can test it, make sure this part of the equipment ran, but actually turn it on to be in the ready state when the ready state was to produce a sellable product on a continual basis, not to test this part and test that part. The hundreds of employees he's referencing, hopefully, were just people who were doing installation, not the actual operators. The building is unsafe. My inspection department has verified that.
I just want to say that his.
Just.
Okay, sorry.
Russell, you still got the floor.
There are 3 other cases that's part of the Stein case. One of them was a building that they had a CO on January the 1st, and they decided not to open the building right away. They wanted to have a grand opening in March. That one was allowed to be depreciated because they had the CO. Then it does go back to the CO. If they had the CO, they could depreciate. They didn't, they could not. Equipment kind of does the same thing. Another one is a Sealy Power case, and Sealy Power talks about actually incinerator produces electricity. They were burning trash, as incinerator would do, but they were not able to produce electricity. Again, no depreciation. And the final case, a Valley Natural Fuel case, which is making ethanol. They can make ethanol, but they need to make it 198 proof, and they only hit 180 proof. And that went on for 2 years. Because of that, depreciation was held for 2 years because they could not meet the ready state intended by the final owner of the property. It's pretty clear.
All right, Mr.
I
Surratt?
mean, yeah, I mean, it's clear to prove my point. I mean, obviously, these are the cases I sent. If that plane had those screens in them, it would have been ready for use. It didn't, so it wasn't. In our case, all the screens were there. Everything was ready. We were producing. That's it. It's ready to use. The ethanol case, it was supposed to produce at 180 proof. It wasn't producing at 180 proof, so it wasn't ready. We were producing where we were supposed to be producing. I mean, the cases just show that that something is in use when it is being used for its purpose, and that's the case here. I mean, of course, as in law, you can read, read as you like, but those are cases I sent Russell. So obviously, I believe they supported my, kind of my view on it, and they do. I mean, and again, he brought up a case where there was a certificate of occupancy, and actually in that case they didn't use the certificate of occupancy. They said it was used, it was in use afterwards, and the certificate of occupancy wasn't relevant for the case. So, I mean, I just don't see Russell's case here. I mean, that's it. I mean, it was placed in use. We were producing what we were supposed to produce, and that's it. I mean, there really isn't that much wiggle room here in regard to the legality of. I mean, it's a pretty simple case. I mean, it's a bread and butter case for placed in use. I mean, the machinery was ready. It was producing what it was supposed to be. That's it.
We have referred this to our legal counsel, and their ruling
Yes.
was what?
There is a letter from the county attorney found on page 111 in your packet. I regret that he's not here to discuss this with you, but he did want to put his findings of fact and opinion in writing to you in your packet.
All right,
Miss-
now.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
No, well, I'm just stating that his legal opinion is that they were not entitled to the depreciation,
But-
so.
Yeah, I was just gonna point out too that we can rule on this if he feels that strong about it, since we're acting as a Board of Equalization and Review. If we rule in
well, he
the
can
attorney's
certainly appeal it to
recommendation, he
the
can appeal it to
controller.
this property tax division.
Sounds to me that's where it needs to go in.
Well, Mr. Chairman, is there any other discussion? If not, I'll make a motion that we go with the attorney's legal opinion that Spuntech's not entitled to take any depreciation as a reduction in the value of the subject property. I'll make that as a motion.
Okay, any discussion on that? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Now, he has a right, you do understand you have a right to appeal that.
Yeah, you know, the bottom line is, what we're talking about here is a very small amount of money, because it's 10%, but then we've got an incentive. It's a small amount of money, but it's the principle that's important here.
But the drop dead date is January the 1st, according to the state law, so I think that's what ties anybody's hands, and they use that, and they meant for it to be that way, so I think you have perfect right. I understand what you're
I mean,
saying, but
if we're talking about maybe $5,000, I mean, I could, you know, if I brought in a tax lawyer from my side, I mean, that would be, you know, thousands of dollars just for him to make the trip here. I mean, so, I mean, of course, the person in the state is wrong. He doesn't know the law. But I mean, it really is unfair. You can't invent the tax law in Person County. I mean, that's just, I mean, it's just pretty absurd. I mean, really.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I think we've made a motion and it's been passed, and we're on to the next agenda item.
All right,
So what is the decision? Sorry.
we take the recommendation of our attorney that you are not entitled to the depreciation, and you have all rights of appeal to the state of property tax.
To the Board of Adjustments, Person County.
Not
I'll
board.
send out a letter that describes the procedure to appeal further.
because property tax division and all that.
Okay.
Basically, the way I see it, we've been asked to make a legal decision that we're not qualified to make.
Get representation from our attorney.
Yep.
So, next agenda item.
All right. Permission to accept Federal Land and Water Conservation Fund, Mr. John Hill.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Just want to come before you today and just to let you know that, of course, we did not receive Parks and Recreation Trust Fund, and you have your the abstract in front of you. But we did write the grant so that we would be eligible for Land Water Conservation Trust funds. So we did indeed, we were awarded that. So before you've got a certification saying that you must accept the grant. And so basically, what I'm here to ask you is that we have permission to accept the Land Water Conservation Trust Fund grant. It's $250,000. And then I would like to be able to take that $250,000 and apply again for Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. Our consultant said that it'd be a good idea, since Person County was granted a waiver of retroactivity on the last grant. We have until February to apply for that same grant again that we did not get. And then we are also able to use LWCF as the grant match. And then further to that, I'd like to request that those funds be used for the actual complex itself, to go back in to improve the complex and once it's awarded.
You talking about the rock split?
Yeah, correct.
Mr. Chairman, I
Mhm.
make a motion to approve the recommendation of the Parks and Rec Director.
Any discussion?
One thing,
Fell out.
one thing I'd like to make sure of, when we wrote the grant, I think we talked about this before, but I am old and forget things, so we left out the properties that were adjacent to it, and it only encompasses the property that's on the Sportsplex.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Those were not included in the grant.
Thank you.
Excuse me for interrupting, we have a commissioner in distress.
Yeah. Can you make a motion? Can you read it back now?
You're looking at it to see if there's something in there you didn't see?
Look close, Ray.
What are we missing this level?
All right, we have a motion. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Commissioners.
Go to work. All right, Chairman's report. Only thing I've got to report is I ask everybody to vote. It's the people's opportunity to speak. Don't waste it. Other than that, the manager?
I believe today is actually Boss's Day, so I wish you all a happy Boss's Day, and same to my coworkers who are also supervisors, wishing them a happy Boss's Day today. And I didn't have any other.
Okay. Any commissioner got anything you want to talk about?
I want to say something about the flood down east. Since I work in environment, and still work some in environmental health, I went down there after Hurricane Floyd, and I don't think people that have not ever been affected by it can really understand what a disaster that really is down there. Before, when the water went back down and you rode down the road and looked at people's houses, you could see the water level either up to the window, up to the roof, or back down. And when I was down there, I did a lot of work with private water supplies, and when you took the top off of those wells, most of those wells are bored. So their water was contaminated. Everybody's was that had a well down there. Water was contaminated. It didn't matter how well it was protected. You couldn't protect it good enough to keep that water standing there for a week at a time from seeping into it. And we put used a lot of Clorox and a lot of chlorine in water supplies down there. And think about that, in about 3 or 4 weeks from now, that's when they're going to really need some help. They've got people down there now feeding them in the shelters and stuff, but when they go back to that property and look at the damage that they've got there, I mean, keep that in mind. And if there's some organization that you can give through, donate. If you've got some kind of, if it's something you can actually do, if you go down there, it would be fine to do it. But I don't think you need to go down there and get in the way. But if a group calls you and you're an expert in something, then you can go, and I'm sure that Tracy's probably going to end up down there when it's over with. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, and I hope people will donate to them, because it's just because the wind's not blowing and the trees falling down there, people that are not affected by it sometimes tend to let it get away from them. But it's really a mess. Thank you.
Can I mention that we've had about 5 staff members who've been deployed. They first went to Johnston County, and then they were moved to Kingston, and they are returning from 8 days down there assisting with some decontamination and cleanup efforts as well. and it was a medical response team, so a lot of our EMS folks were there.
Mr. Chair, we can mention too that tomorrow night we have another candidate forum for our citizens by the NAACP at the City Hall, and it's at 7 p.m. if anybody's interested.
You got one Thursday night at the community school.
6:30. I as a business have several businesses, customers in the flooded area. We've been trying to get in touch with them for actually the last week and a half, most of which have not been able to get back to work, but most of them are school systems that we will be contacting hopefully this week to contribute some mops to help in their reconstruction is what it's gonna amount to. Sometimes we manufacture wet mops, commercial wet mops, and sell quite a few school systems, and I don't know how many they'll need. If your building's been underwater, you probably need a bulldozer. If it's not underwater, you may not need a mop, but we're certainly gonna be in touch with them to help in any way that we can. And that is something that, unless you've lived through it, like Mr. Clayton says, that's something that you really can't relate to. I can in one respect, because I've got a building that's situated close to 10-Yard Branch. And several years back, we got flooded due to heavy thunderstorms about 4 times in 1 month. And so I can relate somewhat to what 5 or 6 inches of water looks like, but not 50 feet of water. So, has anybody got anything else that we need to talk about? Not. Have a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All in favor? Vote. Everybody vote.
7 tomorrow.